Good morning, America. New overnight, the White House responds to those bombshell indictments, calling the Russia investigation distracting. As two of the president's former top campaign staffers wake up under house arrest, and a former campaign advisor pleads guilty to lying about his contacts with Russian operatives. Who could be the next target of the investigation? The president's attorney is here live only on GMA.
State of emergency. That dangerous storm pounding the East Coast, sweeping away a home, now leaving hundreds of thousands without power, forcing Halloween to be postponed. Saved by a surfer. This boat flipping over, the captain trapped in rough waters, on the verge of drowning. When a 13-year-old hero hears his cry for help, we take you inside the incredible rescue.
And are you ready for it? Halloween, taking over Times Square. Can we top this? You won't believe the tricks and treats in store. Plus the Stranger Things cast here live for a Halloween like never before.
Live in Times Square, this is GMA with Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, and Michael Strahan.
And good morning, America. Happy Halloween.
Ooh, I'm a little scared this morning. You usually get scared in the elevator when you're coming down. Somebody jumps out at you.
That's true.
But it's always a big morning here on GMA. And, you know, Ginger, she couldn't even wait. She's already dressed up, and she's outside with our crowd in Times Square. Look at her.
That's the cutest little pumpkin you've ever seen. We will have much more all ahead. But first, of course, the White House facing new fallout from those bombshell indictments. Special Counsel Robert Mueller announcing charges against three of President Trump's former advisors in connection with the Russia investigation.
12 counts, potentially decades in prison for the president's former campaign chair, Paul Manafort, and his deputy, Rick Gates. Both men pled not guilty in court. Perhaps more significant, the guilty plea from campaign foreign policy advisor George Papadopoulos. In that plea, he details months of contacts with Russians and others in the Trump campaign. He has been secretly cooperating with special counsel since his arrest in July.
And our team in Washington covering every angle of the story, and our chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl, starts us off. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Robin. In a rare interview overnight, White House Chief of Staff John Kelly acknowledged that the special counsel investigation, at the very least, has been a big distraction for the president and that he wants it over soon.
Hours after news of the special counsel indictments broke, President Trump emerged from the White House to trick or treat. But no comment on the indictment of the man who ran his campaign or the guilty plea by a former advisor. His chief of staff, however, told Laura Ingraham on Fox News that most of the White House staff isn't concerned.
I think the staff is very comfortable with simply serving the nation. The vast majority of the staff would have nothing to do with any of this kind of thing.
But Kelly also made it clear the White House wants Mueller to finish his investigation quickly.
It would seem that they're towards the end of the witness pile. And I don't know how much longer it could possibly go on, but we're in great hopes that it wraps up. It is very distracting to the president, as it would be to any citizen, to be investigated.
The indictment of former campaign chairman Paul Manafort and his deputy Rick Gates makes no mention of the Trump campaign. Potentially more serious, though, is the guilty plea from George Papadopoulos, a former foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign who acknowledged contacting Russian operatives to get dirt on Hillary Clinton and then lying about it. The White House said Papadopoulos played an unpaid and very limited role during the campaign. But then candidate Trump once personally praised Papadopoulos in a Washington Post interview.
George Papadopoulos, he's an oil and energy consultant, excellent guy.
And soon after, Trump shared this photo of the two at the same table in a March 31st national security meeting.
We've been saying from day one there's been no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion, and nothing in the indictment today changes that at all.
But the George Papadopoulos agreement is about the campaign. It is specifically about the campaign.
It has nothing to do with the activities of the campaign. It has to do with his failure to tell the truth.
As for the president himself, he took to Twitter to say the special counsel should really be investigating Hillary Clinton. Sorry, but this is years ago, before Paul Manafort was part of the Trump campaign. But why aren't crooked Hillary and the Dems the focus?
The White House press secretary was asked if the president would consider issuing pardons for Paul Manafort and Rick Gates. She said it's too early to start talking about pardons, But, George, she certainly did not rule it out.
Did not rule it out at all. Okay, John, thanks very much. More now on George Papadopoulos, the Trump campaign advisor who pled guilty to lying to the FBI about his contacts with Russians during the campaign. His agreement lays out months of contacts with Russia and top campaign officials. Our chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross, here with the details. Good morning, Brian.
Well, good morning, George. The Russia investigation now has its first turncoat or whistleblower among the president's men and women. And the question this morning is, who might he bring down? 30-year-old George Papadopoulos has emerged from obscurity with the best evidence yet of possible collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. It was 1 week after the inauguration of the 45th president that campaign advisor George Papadopoulos met with FBI agents and proceeded to deny over and over that he had any dealings with the Russians. Donald Trump himself had consistently denied any connection too, as in this exchange with ABC's Cecilia Vega.
Did you or anyone in your campaign have any contact with Russia leading up to or during the campaign? Nothing at all.
Not at all, he said. But Papadopoulos knew better and now has admitted he lied to the FBI. That, in fact, shortly after becoming part of the Trump national security team, seen in this campaign photo, he met with 2 suspected Russian agents. And that within a month, the campaign advisor went to London and was offered dirt on Hillary Clinton with thousands of emails by his Russian connections.
Connections that would be involved with crimes that were committed by the Russian government that are designed to help one campaign over the other.
The White House is now claiming Papadopoulos was just an unpaid advisor with a minor role in the campaign.
No activity was ever done in an official capacity on behalf of the campaign in that regard.
Yet, according to the court documents, Papadopoulos reported to 4 senior campaign officials or advisors who offered encouragement, with one telling him in an email, "Great work." It was just 6 weeks after Papadopoulos was in touch with his Russian connections that another group of Russians went to Trump Tower and also offered dirt on Hillary to Donald Trump Jr., son-in-law Jared Kushner, and campaign chairman Paul Manafort. Trump Jr. says nothing came of it, but now that meeting, too, is under investigation by the special counsel.
So, Brian, Papadopoulos arrested back in July, and they called him in their plea agreement a proactive cooperator. That suggests he could have been wearing a wire for these last months.
Absolutely. That is a time-tested technique the FBI uses with people like this who are part of an alleged conspiracy to contact those also in the conspiracy to see if they will implicate themselves.
Brian Ross, thanks very much.
All right, guys, and that 12-count indictment against Manafort and advisor Rick Gates makes no mention of collusion with Russia, but it could potentially be used as leverage in the special counsel's investigation. Our senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas has more from Washington. And Pierre, Manafort and Gates are now out of custody but under house arrest and could face, we're talking serious jail time if convicted.
Robin, good morning. That's right. They're under house arrest and if convicted could face up to 20 years in prison. And you're right, that sweeping 12-count indictment makes no allegations about collusion with the Russians. But what the special counsel does do is argue that Manafort engaged in a massive money laundering campaign to hide income made from doing business with Ukrainian officials who had alleged ties to Russia. The FBI says Manafort laundered $18 million to finance a, quote, lavish lifestyle, including spending $6.4 million on 3 homes in New York and Virginia and over $1 million on clothes. His attorney denies any wrongdoing, basically calling Mueller's case a sham. But make no mistake, former prosecutors tell us one of Mueller's goals is to see if Manafort or Gates will cooperate, Robin.
Well, with all that we've seen so far with the indictments and the plea agreement, it's clear that a very broad net has been cast by Mueller.
That's right. It can include any member of the campaign with any connections to the Russians. Michael Flynn, for example, remains under intense investigation. Bottom line, Robin, in this case, when the FBI comes knocking, you better be telling the truth because they probably know a lot more than they think you know.
That's true. All right, Pierre, thanks.
Okay, let's bring in the president's attorney now, Jay Sekulow. Mr. Sekulow, thanks for joining us again this morning. You know, the president's team on several occasions denied any contacts with the Russians during the campaign. The president said he had nothing to do with Russia. But from this plea agreement yesterday, we know that Russians reached out to Papadopoulos because he was a campaign advisor. They discussed these thousands of emails and dirt on Hillary Clinton. That Papadopoulos remained in regular contact with Russians and also with top campaign officials. So is the president prepared now to retract those denials of any contact?
No, here's what you have. I mean, you got to look at the context when you mentioned, George, the document, the charging document, and in it says in paragraph 21, section C, the trips, this all led up to this purported trip that was going to take place between Russian officials and Trump campaign officials. And what does it say? This is the government's document. The trip proposed by defendant Papadopoulos did not take place.
Yeah, but that document also says, hold on right there.
Good.
That document also says that he was encouraged to take that trip by a top campaign official, Sam Clovis, who is now a White House advisor. So he was encouraged to take that trip, even though it doesn't happen. And it details months of contacts with the Russians before that and months of contacts with high campaign officials.
Yeah, and again, the charge of what was a violation of the law here was not proposed meetings with individuals, a professor that was Russian-based. I think they met initially in London. The charge of what got George Papadopoulos in trouble was that he lied to the FBI agents regarding the timing of when he said these took place.
About his contacts with the Russians.
No question. That's what. Yes, that's what's in the charging document, George. So that was part of the plea agreement. But the position that the administration has advocated and the position that it continues to advocate, and I think, by the way, as it continues to advocate this, you look at the Manafort pleas, no mention of anything to do with the campaign there in their charging document, the indictment. With regard to Papadopoulos, he was, as Sarah Sanders said yesterday, he was a volunteer with the campaign, served on one of the committees. You've been involved in campaigns. There are a lot of these committees. He was evidently, according to the documents that the government has filed, he was in contact with individuals that purported to be somehow involved with the Russia or Russian government. It's not clear from the documents what they actually were. The end result is the meeting doesn't take place. Well, so when you just had all this conversation about collusion. Remember this, collusion in and of itself, there's no crime of collusion. What is a violation of the law here? I go back to that. For George Papadopoulos, the violation of the law, George, was that he lied to FBI agents, which is clearly not condoned by the administration.
Collusion is cooperation, and that's what he was doing with Russians. But I want to get back to that meeting that he actually had with President Trump. I want to put that picture back up again, March 31st of 2016. Sure. According to the document, he said at that meeting with President Trump that he could set up a meeting with Mr. Putin. What was Mr. Trump's reaction to that?
I don't know. I wasn't there, and I've not talked to the president about that, so I don't know. I do know this. The meeting that was being proposed did not take place, and that's clear in the government's submission that they filed in the federal court.
You spoke to Mr. Trump yesterday, correct?
Yes.
What was his reaction to these indictments in this plea agreement?
Well, let me say a couple things on that. First of all, I'm not going to give you obviously my conversations with the president of the United States, their attorney-client privilege, but I will tell you this. I gave him, as we do as lawyers, a kind of an analysis of what we had seen that morning with regard to the public documents. All I'm giving you is what we saw, which was the public documents, which was the indictment of Paul Manafort and Richard Gates. We discussed that with him. That was it. There's a story that's been posted, I think, on one of the other networks that says there was this meeting with all of the lawyers in the residence for hours. And I just want to say that that's not true. That did not take place. We had a conversation with the president, discussed what the charges looked like they were, and that was it. I obviously won't discuss anything else that would be related to attorney-client information, but that was the nature of the discussion.
Let me ask you something else then. You know, the president's campaign chair and his deputy charged with laundering millions of dollars, $75 million in the documents. So given that, does he regret hiring Paul Manafort?
Well, remember this. Paul Manafort was brought into the campaign for a period of time. He was the campaign chairman. His primary focus was the delegate issue. And don't forget, George, he was ultimately terminated by the president, by then the nominee, because of the discussions that started coming up with regard to the Ukraine, that started becoming information that was a distraction to the campaign. And the administration, then it wasn't an administration, then the campaign took action and removed him as the chairman. So it wasn't as if this went on and when information became available, nothing was done. It was. The president terminated Paul Manafort's position.
Two final questions. Can you say definitively that the president has ruled out firing Robert Mueller?
Let me say this, and I have said this. There is no conversation regarding firing Robert Mueller, and there's no basis to fire Robert Mueller on anything that we've seen. So I will say this. The president has not indicated to me or to anyone else that I work with that he has any intent on terminating Robert Mueller. And the way it would work is you could only terminate a special counsel for cause, and we just don't see any basis for cause.
So no intent, but not ruling it out. How about pardons? Is he ruling that out?
I have not had a conversation with the president regarding pardons, and pardons are not on the table.
Jay Sekulow, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Thanks, George.
All right, so let's bring on our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams. You were listening intently. What jumped out at you the most?
So it's important to remember what's significant here and what's not significant here. It's not that significant at this point exactly what Papadopoulos did, even what Manafort or Gates did, in the context of the big picture question of was there collusion. What do I mean by that? The key question is, what did the Trump campaign officials do? Every time a question is asked about, well, what did the campaign officials do? The answer is, well, this is what Papadopoulos has been found, this is what he's pleading to, or this is what Manafort is charged with. Those are important, but they don't go to the ultimate question of what did the campaign officials do? What did they say in response, et cetera? And that's what you have to be focusing on.
But, you know, Manafort and Gates, they're pleading not guilty. But does this mean they're not cooperating with the investigation?
It means they're not cooperating enough. If they are cooperating, if they did cooperate, they're certainly not going to cooperate now. If they did cooperate at any point, we don't know, but they certainly didn't cooperate enough to get a plea deal.
Let's tie the two things together, because one of the things we know from the Papadopoulos agreement is we believe the high campaign officials he was in contact with include Paul Manafort and likely Rick Gates as well. So if you tie together the idea that he may have information on them with the indictments of Manafort and Gates, it's another way to get more pressure on them to cooperate going forward.
That's right, but it is fair for the administration to say that the Manafort and Gates indictments don't relate to Russia, and they don't relate to Trump. Meaning they're about money. I shouldn't say they don't relate to Russia. They don't relate to the Trump campaign because they're about things that happened before then. The question, when you look at the big picture, is a separate issue.
All right, Dan, thank you very much, my friend. Shake my hand.
You know, I always like to shake your hand.
I love to shake your hand.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to turn to tonight's World Series showdown, everybody. Everything is on the line for the Dodgers. The Astros are just one win away from their first championship ever, and TJ Holmes is outside Dodger Stadium in LA. Hey, TJ.
Hey, good morning to you, Stray. The Astros should feel pretty good, right? Not just because they're up 3-2 and could wrap this thing up tonight, but because they got their stud on the mound tonight. Big game pitcher Justin Verlander, who's been one of the best in baseball for a long time, but he has been great for the Astros. He's only been with the team about 2 months since he came over in a late season trade. And what has he done since he come to the Astros? He has not lost a single game, guys, including in these playoffs. So that's how good they should feel right now. But hey, the Dodgers should feel pretty good as well. And this is why, Strahan, because guess who had the best home record in all of baseball this year? You got it. These Dodgers. So they're glad to be coming home.
No place like home.
There's no place like home. Still going to be a hard win. But what would this victory mean, TJ, for the Astros? I mean, it's a city that's been through so much this year.
Yeah, it's not just would be the first World Series for the franchise in their history, but they have been taking on that Houston Strong mantra since that city was devastated by Hurricane Harvey. They wear those patches that say strong on their uniforms during this postseason. But a lot of these guys were affected, their own families as well, but they've really taken that on. It would mean a lot for a city that could use something to smile about right now.
And I know what it meant to New Orleans when the Saints won the Super Bowl after Katrina. It means a lot.
Okay, we'll be watching tonight. Let's get the Halloween forecast now from Ginger.
And more than 700,000 people are still without power, so Halloween has actually been postponed in parts of New England, especially Massachusetts to Maine, because Maine has had more power outages than they did even in the ice storm in the late 90s. Pretty nice weather overall, though, for most of the country today. The Tuesday Trivia now brought to you by PetSmart.
At PetSmart, we're so close to donating 60 million meals to pets in need. That definitely feels good. With your support, we provide meals for pet shelters and food banks to feed hungry pets across the country. This holiday season, buy any bag of dog or cat food at PetSmart. Any brand, any size, and we'll give a meal to a pet in need. 60 million meals. That's so much food. PetSmart, for the love of pets.
And a very good morning, meteorologist Brian Vandergraff. We're going to be mostly sunny today, near 60 degrees, a nice autumn afternoon. Temperature-wise, a little shy of that average of 64, but the big difference today, those winds northwest at 5. Remember yesterday, they were rather blustery. A lot of folks out trick-or-treating tonight. Temperatures will be falling through the 50s. Also, the Leesburg Halloween Parade steps off tonight at 6 o'clock downtown Leesburg. It will be cool. Bundle up, but not too many layers because you want to make sure that costume hangs out so everyone can see who you are.
Coming up, as Kevin Spacey faces new backlash over that sexual misconduct allegation, the big announcement from House of Cards and the new fallout in Hollywood.
And everybody get ready. Our Halloween spooktacular is taking over Times Square. Everybody's out with super kids everywhere.
Every TV doctor knows when preparing for surgery, use an overpronounced washing technique for dramatic effect.
also